everyone. Can I please get everyone's attention? Hello, everyone.
Hi, everyone. We're about to start. You can please lower down. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming out tonight. My name is Ross Silverman, and I will be your MC tonight. Welcome to Glen, Gery's Brickwork Design Studio. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us for this year's Fast Forward. We'll be live streaming tonight's event on YouTube, so thank you to everyone joining us from home as well. This is our 14th year putting on Fast Forward during the DesignPhiladelphia Festival, and I'd like to ask everyone to give a round of applause to the wonderful people that make that possible. We are fortunate enough to have a great committee that works very hard to make this event happen every year. And here to talk a little bit more about the Philadelphia Emerging Architects, I'd like to invite co-director Rafaela to the stage.
All right, hi everyone. I'm Rafaela Pereira. I'm one of the directors for Philadelphia Emerging Architects, which is the emerging committee under the AIA Philadelphia chapter. And we do a lot of events like this where we want to bring kind of the design community to our emerging professionals, just to get them into seeing what it is like as they get into this industry for us. So we do a lot of events like happy hours, we do construction tours, firm crawls, and even events like this where we bring like older professionals throughout the entire design community to bring in so that they could see what is the future, right, for the city that we live in, right? And one of our events coming up next is going to be our Spooktacular event. That's going to be on October 18th, a Saturday, and that's going to be one of our volunteer events where we kind of volunteer at the Children's Crisis Center, and we create a spooky town where we kind of create basically a neighborhood for little kids in the local area to trick-or-treat in an area where they don't have another safe space to do so. So if you guys are interested, feel free to reach out, check out our Instagram for details about that. And lastly, I think we couldn't have done this at all with the rest of our PIA committees. So I just want to give a big thank you to everyone for working so hard, and we wouldn't be able to do any of what we do this year without you guys. So thank you.
Now I'd like to thank our very generous sponsors for all the support that make this event possible. With our long-standing team, we were able to put on tonight's event year after year. A very special thanks to Glen, Gery and Brickworks Design Studio for making this stage possible to share our ideas on what's next for Philadelphia and their amazing hospitality. I'd like to invite them to the stage to say a few words.
Hi, everyone. I know some of you, but my name's Gia. I'm with Brickworks. You know, we really love hosting this event every year because we truly feel tied to the community and their vision for Philadelphia, and we love shaping that. For those of you who are new, Brickworks is the parent company of Glen, Gery Brick. And you know, here the studio acts as basically a showroom for Glen, Gery, servicing the A&D community with their projects, technical support, advice, lunch and learns, and events like this. Last year, a little bit more about Philly. Last year, we kicked off our Shapes collaboration nationally. This was a contest that really pushed the limits of custom brick design or bespoke. Two of the winners came from Gnome Architects right here in Philadelphia. They couldn't be here. And the winners for 2025 will be out soon. And lastly, you know, my favorite, I get to brag about some of the projects that we've been involved in. And they're a part of Philadelphia landscape, and many, I'm sure, you've walked across or seen our marketing for it. You know, we just really look forward to continue shaping Philadelphia with beautiful designs, you know, our lasting product, and future of all of the emerging architects. Thank you, everyone.
I would also like to thank Colorspace Labs, the videographer of tonight's event, who are streaming live on YouTube and have been with us since day one. They're a huge part of what makes this event so special and ensure that our brave presenters' voices are heard throughout the injury. So I'd like to invite them up to say a word about their company.
Hey everybody, my name's Charles. I'm with Colorspace Labs. How many years has this been?
14.
14 years. That's a really long time. This event has always been really important to us. Just hearing what everyone has to say, showcasing what new ideas are in Philly. Eric DeVera brought me in way back then, and just everyone always feels like family. But Colorspace Labs, we are a full-service media production company. We do a lot of corporate communications, branded streaming, documentaries, photo, video, whatever you need. Do a lot of the architecture space as well, but if you ever need anything, we're here. So, thank you.
All the recordings from tonight will be made available on our YouTube channel and through our blog, Fast Forward Philly at blogspot.com, which I think actually is our old URL, but it'll all be on the market. You can find it. Finally, I'd like to give a big thank you to the AIA and Design Philadelphia, who make this event possible and continue to nurture the passion in all of us that fuels these presentations in the design industry in Philadelphia. We have a great lineup of presenters this evening, all of which will be addressing the theme of what's next for Philadelphia. Each presenter is allotted 20 slides set to an automatic timer for 20 seconds, for a grand total of 6 minutes and 40 seconds. The timer will keep the event moving the entire night, so the presenters will be transitioning from one presentation to the next on the clock. For those of you in the crowd tonight, please feel free to post photos to socials using the hashtag What'sNextPHL to help share the ideas and the missions presented tonight. Please also visit our website, which also has the wrong URL. You know what the right URL is?
Yes, it's going to be on Wix now, so it'll be on socials eventually.
We'll get it out there. But visit the website, if you can, to learn more about our presenters and the event content. And be sure to talk to all of our presenters after the event. And without further ado, I welcome our first presenter.
Hi everyone, I'm Hanna Stark. I'm the Director of Policy and Communications at the Preservation Alliance for Greater Philadelphia, a member-supported nonprofit that promotes the appreciation, protection, and appropriate use and development of the region's historic resources. And I'm so excited to be here tonight to share with you what our vision is for what's next for Philadelphia, which includes a more vibrant, sustainable, and attractive city fueled by transformational adaptive reuse projects. And this is the 20 seconds. I think I talked too long on my intro slide. So there's far too many buildings across the city that look like this, vacant, no longer being used for their original purpose, creating blight instead of opportunity. So many of these buildings are full of potential, just waiting to be reimagined in ways that serve today's changing city. And adaptive reuse asks the question, how do we take what we already have and make it relevant for the future? And it creates these ripple effects. It can revitalize neighborhoods, preserve architectural character, support sustainability, and strengthen community. Every time we reuse an existing building, we reduce waste, save resources, and create spaces that reflect both our heritage and our future needs. And we don't have to look far for examples of success. We're lucky that there are so many adaptive reuse projects that have been done throughout the city. And actually each June, the Preservation Alliance holds an annual Preservation Achievement Award ceremony where we recognize these transformational projects. And I'm You'll see throughout the presentation a lot of our award-winning projects that I'm happy to share with you tonight. We'll go first up to the Delaware River, where the former Pico Delaware Station at one time was a beacon of progress, but for far too long after the technology evolved, it instead was an icon of decline, looming over Penn Treaty Park. But now it serves as the Battery, a really vibrant mixed-use campus that has hotel rooms, apartments, event space, and I've heard a really cool new social athletic club. Who would have thought that what those turbine halls can be used for are housing sports fields and sports courts? So it is really just an example of taking a building that no one thought they could reuse and turning into something special. If we go to West Philadelphia, there's another great example at the former Provident Mutual Insurance Company. It was their home from the 20s to the 80s, but after that, the city purchased it in the early 2000s. Some thought it was going to become the police headquarters for some period of time. That didn't happen, but in 2020, developers transformed it into another mixed-use campus that is now anchored by a charter school, CHOP facilities, and they're actually planning to redevelop the rest of the site with really exciting housing new construction. So it's going to become even more of an anchor in the West Philadelphia community. And you may remember those photos from earlier in the slideshow. It shows that even the buildings that were missing all of their windows, all of their roofs, can still be reimagined to be mixed-use anchors, ranging from hospitality to education to housing. But 20 seconds seems a lot longer when you're up here. But there still are so much possibility that still needs to be done. There are so many buildings that remain vacant, and we believe at the Preservation Alliance really hold the key for success. And I'm excited to talk to you about a few key buildings tonight, but I really want you to imagine all of the commercial corridors in our residential neighborhoods throughout the city and be thinking about that. One building that the Preservation Alliance has been advocating for many years is the former police administration building over on Race Street. Since the police vacated the property in 2022, it has sat vacant. The city doesn't really seem to have a clear plan with what they're going to be doing for the future of that site, but at the Preservation Alliance, we believe it should look something like this. It should be reimagined as a community-driven hub. We're actually hosting a symposium later this month called the Roundhouse Reimagined, where 6 design firms will be sharing their concepts for what this building can be, how it can be an anchor. Yes, it has a controversial past, but there is a way that we can recognize that and bring it back to the community. Also, I want you to think about all of the school buildings that exist in all of our neighborhoods. Right now, the school district is undergoing a facilities planning process that's probably going to lead to the closure of more neighborhood school buildings, and the Preservation Alliance believes that these are absolutely ripe for conversion to housing or small business incubators. We've seen that success around the city. We've also seen buildings like this languish. This is a void on Germantown Avenue. While there's development happening all around it, this building, unfortunately, is underutilized, and the city owns it, and it seems like there is so much that could be done to reactivize Germantown Avenue instead of having this building languish for longer and longer. And I hope that you'll see tonight the benefits that adaptive reuse can bring, whether that is the strengthening of neighborhoods, creating jobs, or just building a future rooted in both sustainability and history. Again, 20 seconds. But reuse doesn't happen by accident. It requires the right tools and incentives for creative redevelopment. Policy is the hidden lever that can take these isolated success stories and scale them citywide. With the right preservation policies, adaptive reuse can become the norm, not the exception. And there are a handful of advocacy policy tools that the Preservation Alliance is constantly advocating for. The first and foremost of these is the Pennsylvania State Historic Tax Credit Program. Almost every example that I've shown you here tonight has used a combination of federal or state historic tax credits. And just last summer, we were able to quadruple the amount of funding that's available by this program, but there's still so much more that needs to be done to allow this to continue to finance more and more adaptive reuse projects. And when I want you to think about the future of Philadelphia, I want you to think of preservation as a framework for moving forward, for innovating in ways that respect the past, serve the present, and prepare for the future. Adaptive reuse is where preservation meets progress and where Philadelphia can lead nationally because of our unparalleled historic building stock. And looking at these from historic schools converted into affordable housing to former factories reborn as hotels or co-working spaces, each of these places tell a story of continuity and change. The materials may be old, but the energy is certainly new. And adaptive reuse is not just preservation, it's about unlocking opportunity and resilience for Philadelphia's future. This is what I want my future to look like. Learning, working, and gathering in places that once served entirely different roles, but those layers are still visible, creating environments that feel authentic and grounded. And by reimagining our existing buildings, we're not just saving the past, we're designing a more vibrant, sustainable, and inclusive future for all the people who call Philadelphia home.
Philadelphia has over 500 parks. According to Trust for Public Land, the city ranks 28th in the US park score, scoring high on its access to parks with 95% of residents having a park 10 minutes away, while also placing high on equity with 72 points out of 100. However, access to playgrounds in Philadelphia is more limited and spread out. With both many schools and neighborhoods lacking play and recreational spaces for children, recent analysis by Kaboom showed that 1/3 of Philadelphia's census tract and 40% of early child care providers do not have access to nearby play space. Undoubtedly, play is vital for children's development. So is access to play spaces. Playgrounds provide children with a safe environment to build muscle and coordination, motor skills, and cognitive function. Playing with other children helps strengthen social and emotional skills, self-confidence, language, and vocabulary development. Lack of play, in parallel, is detrimental to a child's development, ability to learn and build relationships. In addition to that, play deprivation in children is linked to increased levels of stress, anxiety, and childhood obesity. It is also important to remember that screen time does not replace playtime and the benefits it provides. In Philadelphia, there is a strong correlation between lower socioeconomic status, racial and ethnic minority communities, and lack of or limited access to playgrounds. According to Kaboom, limited transportation, lack of inclusion, low public awareness, and safety concerns may also limit access to these play spaces. Moreover, many neighborhoods with limited access to playgrounds are also heat islands, areas with less vegetation and more impervious surfaces experiencing warmer temperatures, with some neighborhoods being 12 degrees hotter than others. This effect has an adverse impact not only on residents' comfort, but also an increased cooling load and energy consumption harmful to the environment. Despite the limited availability of play spaces, some playgrounds do not see very frequent use. Several factors can be identified as main deterrents to playground use in Philadelphia, at least 3 of which have to do with distance to the nearest play space. Old and unsafe equipment, lack of adequate shading, and age-appropriate programming are among others. However, according to the recent study of playgrounds' patterns of use, distance is the most important factor associated with how likely residents are to visit the nearest play space. It is recommended that, quote, for public health purposes, city planners and designers should consider locating playgrounds half a mile from all residencies. Taking all of this into account, how can Philadelphia's playgrounds be more accessible as well as more desirable? Currently, many playgrounds occupy large lots and host a variety of programs, making construction of new play spaces costly and sometimes impossible in the dense urban fabric of Philadelphia. Here you can see a common recreational typology in Philadelphia, often consisting of a large athletic field, 1 or 2 smaller athletic fields, a playground, and sometimes a recreational or community center adjacent. While playgrounds and recreational facilities do not always adhere to the standard, this type of planning can be seen in many parts of the city, and I'm sure you have encountered them as well. Splitting one large site into several smaller ones would allow for more even distribution of these spaces, as well as encourage travel between sites to access athletic facilities and playgrounds varying by age group. Smaller playgrounds can be split by program, be more age appropriate, and also safer for younger children. With a 5-minute walk to the closest recreational space, for example, a playground, and a 10-minute walk to a site with an alternative program, an athletic field, a skate park, a community center, and so on, networks of play spaces would be formed in each neighborhood and even spanning one community to another. Currently, there are about 40,000 vacant lots in Philadelphia. While most, around 74%, are privately owned, a considerable number is owned by the city. Tools such as this interactive map you can see on the screen, provided by City of Philadelphia, help identify the locations of these vacant sites, many of which are in the communities that lack access to play spaces. Using some of these sites for smaller playgrounds would increase accessibility as well as provide opportunity for redevelopment of empty lots. These lots owned by the city are proposed for public benefit, improvement of quality of life being one of the requirements. As outlined before, access to play spaces is vital for the health of children and is impacting their quality of life directly. It is important to acknowledge that decreasing the walking distance would not solve all issues that are currently acting as deterrents in playground use and limiting accessibility. However, it can play a significant role in encouraging visitors, impacting safety, and increasing variety of public play spaces. Smaller piecemeal projects could also allow for a more gradual rollout. Internationally, the model of smaller recreational sites in dense urban areas has commonly been implemented. Whether it is a planning strategy or a one-off playground design, these precedents demonstrate not only the way such playgrounds can be designed, but also how popular they are with residents. However, many of these international models for urban planning are not applicable to the unique conditions and set of challenges present in Philadelphia. Turning to local precedents of play-related initiatives, which are backed by extensive research and work with communities, we can learn about successful strategies and especially the success of smaller scale designs. The proposed play network envisions a streamlined approach to breaking up most future playground construction. This is not advancing. We're stuck. The proposed play network envisions a streamlined approach for breaking up most future playground construction in smaller interconnected projects, keeping existing large recreational sites but supplementing them with smaller, evenly distributed insertions would increase accessibility throughout the city, especially in neighborhoods currently lacking play spaces and acting as heat islands. In thinking about oh no. Oh.
Is it spazzing out?
I did not touch it.
Okay. Just bear with us for a second. Which one is it? Just tell me what slide you were on.
Let's see.
Talk amongst yourselves, your neighbor. Get to know one another. Okay, and here we go.
We're back. Thank you. In thinking about what is next for Philadelphia, I'm inviting you to imagine the city as an interconnected playscape with more common and accessible play spaces existing as parts of larger networks of recreational facilities. With play being a vital part of child's development, access to these spaces across the city would help set up children of Philadelphia for future success. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Evelyn Sample Oates, and I work for OIC of America, and I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about the Delaware Valley Alliance fighting for economic justice. OIC of America is enriching people's lives and economic well-being while addressing a critical need for today's economy. We were founded in 1964 right here in Philadelphia by the late, great Dr. Leon H. Sullivan, who provided job training and life skills because we found that Black people were buying products and buying services, but they were not getting hired by those companies. So he started this movement, and today we have 26 affiliates. But today I am here to talk to you about the Delaware Valley Alliance, fighting for economic justice, where we enrich people's lives and economic well-being, address a critical need in today's economy, and increase living wage jobs for people. Black poverty in this region has reached an all-time high that is unacceptable. In Philadelphia, there are 1.5 people. 172,000 Black people live in poverty. 27% Black people live in, there are 172,000 Black people in poverty, while 27% live in Black poverty in Philadelphia. In the greater Philadelphia area, poverty is horrible. Some Philadelphia neighborhoods, there are more than 45% poverty rate. Black people comprise 42% of Philadelphians, but 51% of poor Philadelphians. So let's talk about PennDOT, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation, and where they get their money. 78% of PennDOT's budget comes from the regressive gas tax, 78%. So when you go to the gas station and fill your car up, that's 78%. That's higher than any of our neighboring states, higher than all of them in this area. If you are in the bottom 20% of income, 16% of your salary will go for gas tax. 16%. That is something that people can't afford if they are in the bottom 20%. In the last 5 years, PennDOT's total workforce has doubled. It has doubled to over 20,000 people, which is a good thing. People are getting jobs. That's the good news is that the minority workforce is increasing. Latinos are getting more jobs, they're increasing. But the Black workforce is declining. The white workforce is declining. You will see on this slide that 34% are Latinos, 62% the white workforce. The Black workforce, 5%. Unacceptable. Unacceptable. Just the minority workforce in PennDOT, if you look at their minority worker pool, you will see the green line represents the Latino workforce. You see how they are rising. They are increasing. More are getting jobs in construction, on the roads. The orange represents the Black workforce, which is declining. The Delaware Valley Alliance has a challenge. With the declining white workforce, the immigration policy pressures on Hispanic workforce, the underrepresented Black workforce, and more than $1 billion in weather disasters in 2024. All the natural disasters we see are over $1 billion. So the Delaware Valley Alliance has a solution. Our solution is to make sure we have a national coordinated training system, credentialed from accredited institutions, no out-of-pocket expense for students, equipping students for living wage careers, and focused on in-demand fields, including construction and disaster recovery. The Delaware Valley Alliance has an aggressive movement towards economic justice, including educating the justice involved in low-income workforce ages 18 to 25 years old, connecting people to training for in-demand fields, and connecting employers to a reliable workforce so business can thrive. If you see the screen, you see the map, we have 5 training locations in the southeastern quadrant of the state of Pennsylvania. So we are allowing people to come to get trained at no cost and allowing it throughout the state of Pennsylvania to make it more convenient. The United States is facing an extreme shortage of skilled labor. 1 million new construction workers are needed in 2025 and 2026. 41% construction workers are retiring by 2031. 345,000 new trade jobs expected to peak, and 34% of construction workers are foreign-born construction workers. You will see the demand multiplier. There are billion-dollar disasters. These are the natural disasters that cost $1 billion or more, but we need people to build infrastructure, disaster release. We need housing. We're dealing with a housing shortage. We're building data centers right here in the state of Pennsylvania, but we need people to build them. The bottom line, employers need millions of skilled workers. The long-term labor shortage is an opportunity. You will see the Sullivan Training Network is responding to demand for skilled talent by accelerating the pipelines into construction careers. In 3 to 5 years post-placement in the STN and $129 million in anticipated economic impact in fiscal year 26. Our scalable solution is to train 100,000 people a year by 2030 to make sure that they are ready to go and they have 8 to 24 weeks of no-cost training and that they are able to be employed. It's not just in Pennsylvania. This is a map of the United States, so it's not just Pennsylvania, it's all over the US. And again, our goal is to train 100,000 people every year by 2030. We are excited that we have the solution to this growing problem. There are one-pagers in the back of the room for more information. My contact information, Jeff Barge, who works for OIC. Raise your hand, Jeff. He's also here. But please, contact us. We are ready to partner with you and resolve this problem that we have in this nation. Thank you so very much.
Good evening. In contrast to the natural environment, cities and neighborhoods are built by us. We shape them. So in theory, we can build them in any way we like. But are we aware of the way that we are building them? And how do they affect us? My name is Luca. I run my own design studio. And tonight, I'm going to talk about places, people, because they inspire me. I grew up in the medieval city of Berat. The 3 windows there is where I spent my childhood. My walk to school was through this street. These environments shaped my childhood experiences and memories. School ended at 12:30, and I'd have lunch with my friends on the castle walls. In the palm of one hand, a tomato and feta sandwich, and in the other, the entire city of Berat sprawling below us. In short, at 12 years old, we had the city at the palm of our hands. Every evening we strolled the Giro, anticipating to see a crush or hit up an aunt and uncle to buy us a Coca-Cola. That was a big luxury then. But little did I know that 12 years later, I'd be living in Philadelphia, a neighborhood called Mayfair, about 8 miles northeast of the city. While excited about my new chapter, I started to feel a big gap in the urban life that I was used to living in Berat and the life that I was living in Philadelphia. Like many cities around the world, Philadelphia had experienced rapid growth in the 70s and 80s. Cars were cool, and the ideal house was a row home in the outskirts. So the city started to expand like a thin urban pancake. At the time, efficiency was the focus because you would live in one place and work on the other. So we had to make cars happy and forget about the people. The design of these new neighborhoods proposed that it was nicer to be a car and less nice to be a person. But these effects of planning are real, leading to physical inactivity and chronic health issues. Some of these effects still fall under the radar. Studies show that our surroundings are not influential, but crucial to how much we exercise. I thought of the Gery again in Berat when I first visited Dilworth Park after opening. I was in awe. The architects, by combining a flat plaza and a function of a government building, had reimagined what a city hall could be. When I first came there, I saw groups of all ages. I said, what are the chances of this? A government building that doesn't just attract lawyers and politicians, but also the outdoor hippie type. The architects, by combining different activities, have created a variety of experiences. I thought this was so cool and yet so obvious. And why hadn't we been designing more places like this already? I realized, after looking at my own neighborhood, that too often we forgot that we are people. That we are also interested in other people and we like to meet in places. We had planned so long for the cars that we started to think of people as cars. Here is that same street. My friend Mia, who is in the audience, and I got together and with the local community organization and allocated it to a night market once a week. We sent a signal. We want the people to use our neighborhood. What used to be a busy intersection was now used as a plaza where people can hang out, and they are. As a result of the night markets, local commerce started to do better. Nearby business owners would catch me on the street and ask me, "Are we hosting the market this week?" Wonderful surprises can happen when things are mixed together and people meet. Some of our vendors ended up renting storefronts on the avenue. However, many of our neighborhoods are still lined with these kinds of streets. And when we live in this type of environment, it begins to affect us. These streets affect whether we walk to work or take the car. They affect whether we meet each other in the street or pass each other in the highway. Since our environment affects the decision we make, it is essential to adapt our neighborhoods. We can make them more healthy and safer. But we are people after all, and we want to enjoy ourselves, not only on the weekends, but ideally as much as possible. So if we want to bring people into our neighborhoods, we have to make them attractive. Across from City Hall stands a newer building. Its glass facade veiled by blinds that have never, or that once senses will never be open. Transparency turned opaque. That's the image on the left. Yet by simply adding street furniture and lifting those blinds, we dissolved the wall and restored life to the corner. Philadelphia was imagined as a haven for all. Let's rebuild street by street, square by square, and reimagine the memories for our children.
I would like to once again thank all of our presenters, and let's give them another round of applause. Even battling PowerPoint, we made it through the night. I'd like to again thank all of our sponsors, Glen, Gery, Brickworks, Colorspace Labs, AIA Philadelphia, PIA, and DesignPhiladelphia, and for their support in Philadelphia's emerging design professionals and all of our growing ideas. To recap, some of PIA's upcoming events are Spooktacular, which is later this month in a couple weeks. If you're interested in volunteering for this event, please talk to any of our board members, and they'd be happy to share how you can get involved and more about the event. You can keep track of PIA and what's going on in our emerging professionals at these sources through LinkedIn and Instagram. Our handle is AIAPHLPEA. And I'd like to invite everyone to enjoy the reception and interrogate our presenters more about their ideas of what's next for Philadelphia.